President Obama today hosted a bipartisan health care summit in Washington, D.C. He invited Democrats and Republicans together to debate the health care proposal. The whole thing was carried live on boring TV.
Glenn Beck puzzles me. He says things that are patently untrue, yet because it's what the far right wants to hear, they stand up and cheer. In his bid to turn the Republican Party into his economic Darwinist vision, he pretends both the Republicans and the Democrats are basically the same. Progressives, which he essentially equates to socialists, Marx would be proud of. Anyone except the Fox News crowd must realize this silliness is the stuff of late-night comics.
Given the fact that the parties have been at each other's throats on this issue, I thought they agreed on a surprising number of things.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by saying, here's some things we agree on.
I think we can all agree on that.
We agree more than we disagree.
I think we all agree on that.
All parties and both chambers should be able to agree.
I agree with that.
We agree that there have to be some.
You're shaking your head in agreement, and I know we all agree on that.
I totally agree with this.
We all say we agree on.
We all agree.
I think we agree. We all agree on that. Some Republicans and some Democrats agree.
We absolutely agree on that.
We agree.
We all agree.
We basically agree.
We certainly agree with the premise you stated.
We agree philosophically.
I think we have agreement.
You're right. We agree with that.
You agree that we should have some insurance regulation.
I think all of us around this table agree.
We agree on the idea of extending dependent coverage.
The main point is we basically agree.
And I'm happy to announce that no agreement was reached.
Enter Bill O'Reilly, who is still trying to walk this tightrope between the far right and mainstream conservatism.
This evening, he is once again at an undisclosed location. But before he left, I caught up with him. All right, so here's Beck, and there was a lot of cancer talk at the CPAC keynote address by you.
It made some people uncomfortable. Surprisingly, not cancer patients.
Your point was that progressivism
Yes.
is the cancer
Yes.
that has seeped into the fabric of America. Did I get it?
Excuse me.
You're welcome.
Can we just talk for a second? May I approach the bench? Bill O'Reilly, in his book, Culture Warrior. It's fabulous. This is what you write. This whole thing is about progressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now you're coming down on me about.
I'm not coming down. I'm just
You're not
asking.
saying it's a cancer. You're saying it's not a cancer. The whole darn book is about.
I didn't say it wasn't a cancer. I'm just asking about the cancer.
Yeah. Here's the best part. You and I have come to the same conclusion.
So what did Glenn Beck say at CPAC? It's an interesting question because it gets to the heart of Fox News' problem. Does Fox News exist to report or even analyze the news, or is it trying to foment conservative change to its liking upon America? So one could argue the real question is, what is a Fox News analyst doing preaching far-right ideology at a political function? I'll leave that last question for you to figure out for yourself. I'm more interested in looking at Fox News' bias, its propaganda. Glenn Beck, like any good demagogue, keeps his narrative simplistic. He was an alcoholic who made it big, so his life story is a shining example for all of America of how hands-off our government should be.
The disease. This is the disease in America. It's not just spending, it's not just taxes, it's not just corruption, it is progressivism. And it is in both parties. It is in the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm so sick of hearing people say, oh, well, the Republicans are going to solve it all. Really? It's just progressive light. That's like somebody sticking a screwdriver in your eye and saying, stop, stop, and somebody else pulls it out and then puts a pin in your eye. I don't want stuff in my eyes. Stop stabbing in my eyes. Progressivism is the cancer in America, and it is eating our Constitution, and it was designed to eat the Constitution, to progress past the Constitution. Somebody just sent this to me this week. It's Progress and Democracy for Rhode Island. You can't read the date here, but it's 1938. And I just want to read a bit of this to you. I looked under democracy. Democracy has always played an important role in the history of Rhode Island. Time and again, the people of the state have repudiated attempts to nullify or curtail it. Well, in 1938, we are again faced with the proposition, shall democratic government continue? Quote, we communists are ready to join with all liberty-loving people in defending democracy. Democracy is the rule of the majority, and it can only operate as well as our Constitution permits it to operate. But our Constitution is now over 100 years old and fast outliving its usefulness. Revolution or evolution? That's the difference. Revolution or evolution? Well, they're no difference except one requires a gun and the other does it slowly. We have a right to fail. No. This is a God-given right. We have a right to fail. Without failure, there is no growth. 15 years ago, I was completely broke. I was completely out of control. I had no answers in my life, none. I was living in a little one-room apartment. I'd lost my family, everything. My whole life was spiraling out of control. I was on the fetal position of my apartment. Am I going to die? Or I'm going to figure it out and live? Because no one was there, if somebody would have been there to hold me up, I wouldn't have been down here enough to be able to dust myself off and say, no, I'm not going to spend my life here. I'm going to stand up on my own 2 feet, figure it out, and because of that failure, I can stand here today. Without failure, there is no sweetness in success. There's no understanding. Really, the only job of the United States government is to save us from bad guys, protect us from bad guys. And right now, it seems to me that our government looks at the American people as the bad guy.
Economic Darwinism is tough love needed to save America. If you research economic Darwinism, you'll quickly discover it's an economic theory founded in egotism. So the conceit is that followers of its principles know, or think, they'll end up toward the top of the economic ladder, thus their support of it. Many years ago, as a high school project, I did a report on Jacob Riis, a photographer near the turn of the last century, whose pictures of New York City's quote-unquote other half so shocked New Yorkers that they helped bring social change. My point is that Glenn Beck's economic libertarian theory for America has been tried through more of its history than not. The reason most Americans are unaware of the problems with libertarianism and its inherent abuses is the story of the common man is less interesting than the big events and biographies of the giants of our past, so their story goes largely unreported. Glenn shares with us a pamphlet to smear progressives. Note the date, 1938. It's a time of great economic turmoil in America and throughout the world. I doubt the author from tiny Rhode Island spoke but for a few, but sure, many flirted with communism, though the Cold War snuffed most of that out. If I wanted to play the same game, I could smear the right as Nazis because it had its supporters. For example, most Americans aren't aware of the history of eugenics laws in America and how much America flirted with Nazi theory. In my own home state of Virginia, where the progressive movement all but died by 1917, and conservative quote-unquote Dixiecrat Democrats were out of step with their national counterparts until after World War II, Dr. Joseph Desjarnette, director of Western State Hospital, complained that sterilization of quote-unquote defectives under eugenics laws in America badly trailed Germany's. The year? 1938. We've learned a lot in America since 1938, or even since Jacob Riis published How the Other Half Lives in 1889. That learning experience is why we aren't a communist utopia today, nor are we a libertarian one.